In a Fox News interview yesterday morning, senior White House advisor Jared Kushner criticized protesters who mobilized after the killing of George Floyd, and also said this.
There's been a lot of discussion about the issues that were needed in the black community for the last years, but particularly it intensified after the George Floyd situation. And, you saw a lot of people who were just virtue signaling. They'd go on Instagram and cry, or they would, put a slogan on their jersey or write something on a basketball court. And quite frankly, that was doing more to polarize the country than it was to bring people forward. And one thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And what you're seeing throughout the country now is a groundswell of support in the black community, because they're realizing that all the different bad things that the media and the Democrats have said about President Trump are not true.
Shauna Thomas.
So I guess that's why they don't let him talk in front of cameras much? That's shocking on so many levels.
I love Joe Scarborough being shocked there. Man, you are a Republican congressman. Are you going to pretend the party was just flowers and sunshine before Trump came along? Yes, that's a huge part of punditry right now. This is the exact kind of racist, paternalistic bootstraps theory that the Republicans and the GOP have embraced for years, for decades, especially when Joe Scarborough was a part of that party. So Trump says overt racist things all the time, but the racism that Kushner just embodied there, that's been around forever, and it's dominated politics, mostly on the Republican side, but also on the Democratic side for decades at this point. Great piece by Sarah Jones. On the surface, Kushner's latest misstep has all the trappings of a typical Trump administration scandal. Trump or an official says something offensive, critics attack, the White House cries persecution. But the Kushner interview is still notable, and not just because Kushner said something racist, or because he is one of the most powerful members of the Trump administration. It's because Kushner admitted in public something the GOP has believed for decades. The idea that poverty is a moral rather than a material state is old and persists in both major parties, but in the GOP, it has achieved a uniquely virulent status. Shrinking the size of government comes at a high cost to the poor. To paraphrase Adam Sewer, the cost is also the point. The same welfare policies derided by conservatives as handouts actually provide a route out of poverty, a lesson reinforced by the CARES Act that kept at least 12 million out of poverty before Republicans let its benefits expire. Without welfare, people will work, or so think tanks and elected Republicans insist. Since the Republican Party also opposes minimum wage increases and regulations that make workplaces safer places to be, it offers the poor nothing but a trap. You can work yourself to death in America and have nothing to show for it. The result is social stratification, which again is the point. Consider the welfare queen, as Ronald Reagan introduced her in the 1970s. Black, lazy, and female, the welfare queen soon assumed near mythological status in the conservative movement. Reagan was not an original thinker. Around the same time, Daniel Patrick Moynihan helped plant seeds that future generations of welfare-hostile politicians would reap. His titular report identified the breakdown of the family, namely the absence of black fathers, as factors contributing to a culture of poverty. By reframing poverty as a behavioral rather than an economic problem, laissez-faire mythologists tend to fend off the redistribution of wealth and power to the poor and an accompanying loss of status. They shift the burden from their own shoulders to the poor. If small government policies didn't help you, examine your own heart and don't point fingers, they suggest. A president can't make black men be good fathers, can't make people work, can't reform an underclass with bad values. This is why rehabilitating the Republican Party and pretending like they were something different before Trump is so dangerous. These kinds of beliefs, this kind of ideology is inherent in the modern Republican Party, and they are a purely insidious force of corporatocracy, deregulation, and racism that needs to be defeated. Because the only way that you get these horrific elements to go by the wayside is by eradicating Republican power and defeating them handily over and over again. And not messing around, being strategic, being focused, and knowing that there's no way to kind of massage the GOP's ideology and make it more palatable. No. It's built on obvious racism and corruption. Full stop. And that's independent of Donald Trump.